Good morning, everyone. Pleased to have you all here and excited to speak with you. So let's start. Ki I gave this name and some of them messaged me, क्या है ये भाई? क्या लिखा है ये समझ नहीं रहा है. What's with the name? So that sets कि आज क्या बात करने वाले. What I'm here to talk about is you all are like just started with your careers as developers, designers, yeah, in whichever domain, but you are getting started and you have a long way to go. So what I want to talk about is just doing your job like 10 to 7 versus how do you climb the ladder, and how do you do it in, like, what are the things that you should do uh, to get there. So with that, I'll split things into 3 buckets basically. One is as a part of your day-to-day job as a programmer, coder, what are the things that you should absolutely do? Like, these are not optional. If you are not following this, you are hitting your own roadblocks, putting own roadblocks ahead in your path. Second is like in general awareness of what will push you forward. And third is like a technical architecture. Like, this is something, after 4 years, 5 years, you should dive in. You will know how you want to look at these things. So first, let's see, when I say awareness, so usually कैसे है कि you get a task, you're doing it. ठीक है? You're also getting your guidance from your lead or something कि ऐसा करो, ऐसा करो, ऐसा करो. You do that thing, get it off, घर पे निकल लेते. So one small thing वहाँ पे change करो. Ask the question why to yourself. ये ऐसा क्यों है? Why is my manager, why is my lead saying ऐसे ही करना है? There are n number of ways, right? Programming is a language we can write the way we want. So why is this person telling me to do it this way? इस चीज़ को question करो. Also look at things like, okay, mostly backend पे अगर आप कुछ लिख रहे हो, so when this gets deployed, तो हाउ इज इट वर्किंग? बिकॉज इट्स नॉट नेसेसरली कि आपका नोड जैसे पाइथन का वेब सर्विस वैसे ही चल रहा है. देयर इज यूजुअली अ फ्रंट एंड वेब सर्वर विच डज द ट्रैफिक. सो आई मीन व्हेन वी स्टार्ट वी डोंट लुक एट इट. अपन तो सिंपल नोड करके चल रहा है, दैट्स इट. बट गो बियॉन्ड कि हुएवर इज द एंड यूजर ऑफ योर वेब ऐप और अ मोबाइल ऐप, वो उसको कैसे यूज कर रहा है, एंड सी इट फ्रॉम एंड टू एंड एंड क्वेश्चन एवरी पार्ट. ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड कि यहाँ पे क्या हो रहा है. व्हाट डज अ वेब सर्वर डू? यूजुअली डे टू डे नोड के लॉजिक में तो कहीं उसका कुछ देर इज नो कनेक्शन. बट व्हेन वी सी अ वेब सर्वर इट इज़ फेयरली पावरफुल. बहुत कुछ कर सकते हैं इन अ वेब सर्वर. इट लाइक द मोस्ट पॉपुलर वन राइट नाउ इज Nginx. सो व्हेन यू क्वेश्चन दैट, लाइक काफ़ी सारी चीज़ें दैट यू आर राइटिंग इन नोड कैन बी मे बी ऑफलोडेड टू Node.js. बट हैव दैट आइडिया कि क्या है, एंड देन क्वेश्चन कि कैन दिस बी डन इन दिस वे. And obviously you should have your senior or manager who will, who will oblige, who will be very eager to listen to you and look down that path. Once you start seeing these items, like, and then identify ki where is the slowness. So for example, if you are on a again, I'll keep referring to backend, but if you are working on a backend service, when a request is hit, if it's taking like anything more than 200 milliseconds, is slow है वो. Slow है. Like, consider whatever it is, like whatever the big operation is, it might do just return something या फिर process करके दे रहा है. So then the question lies कि 200 milliseconds के ऊपर नहीं, question it right away कि this is not happening. क्या है? How do I fix this? And answer right away नहीं मिलेगा. But that's where we'll touch down the path कि क्या क्या options है. As you grow yourself in your career, how do you get to those items? Thirdly, again relating to this, go beyond your role. So role as in like, okay, you're an application engineer, someone is a front end engineer, someone is a DevOps engineer, but see from others perspective कि क्या चल रहा है. So you work as a backend engineer, you will work with front end and DevOps guys. So देख लो ना क्या चल रहा है, कैसे होता है रे, मेरा कोड कैसे जा रहा है उधर सर्वर पे, एंड हाउ इज द एंड यूजर्स हुएवर इज यूजिंग ऐप और वेब, वो कैसे यूज कर रहे हैं. लर्न फ्रॉम वेरियस वैंटेज पॉइंट्स कि क्या हो रहा है. सो to give an example कि if you see in DevOps का perspective से you will see कि अरे web server भी है, then there is some compression algorithms applied on the web server जो अपना request छोटा करता है, right? As a backend developer नहीं देख रहे अपन, but those things happen कि अगर अपना payload is like 10 KB, that compression does reduce it to like 2 KB, 3 KB. So that is very helpful, but when you look at it, but then there lies a question कि optimization किधर कर सकते हैं. So maybe it's not in your code itself, but having that awareness कि वैसा भी option है, right? That will immensely help you to build yourself as an architect. कि when you get a bigger problem कि अभी कोई manager नहीं है, now you have to design ये problem है. So these learnings at this stage that you will pick up will be very, very helpful at that time. Okay, so yeah, that's about awareness mostly. कि see from various vantage points, you know, खुद के role को limit मत करो. Speaking of my example, like so I started as a application engineer for, I did it for like 2 months. But while doing that, there was an option कि तभी कुछ DevOps engineer, in fact DevOps a term भी नहीं था. It was like cloud computing we had started. So there was a consolidation कि भाई तू देख ले. I mean, no one had given me a tag of कि तू cloud देख रहा है. So I started it, and eventually I don't know how that transition happened from a application engineer to a DevOps engineer, but that happened because, you know, look beyond the role कि मुझे ये भी करना है, ये भी करना है, and then things will figure out, like you will know क्या है. So next आते हैं own it. Like these are the things that you as developers at this stage, you know, these things are absolutely need to happen for you. Like, you know, no one should question your work at a very basic level. So I'm just talking about the basics. And again, I'm not going to deep dive into any specific tech, but these concepts, these principles will apply everywhere. So basically, while you're coding, you know, day-to-day code, even for DevOps, like while you're writing any scripts, you're setting up servers, keep things clean, keep things readable, so that aap nahi hai. If you are not the person, if someone you are working with, they should know. And you know, you need not explain more than 2 minutes. Also, we write like comments in the code. You know, write why, not the what, because what ऐसा होना चाहिए कि code पढ़ के, it's like a reading a book. So when you read, that's what. If you need to write what, then that code is not up to the mark. Code should be readable, but why you have written it is something should go in the comments, is my perspective. Test-driven development, I don't know how many of you have practiced this, but the day we started it at Raw Engineering, that has given us like, you know, it has reduced our test cycles. It does increase some time in development, but it immensely helps, you know, बाद में in the long run, because things fail way before they are deployed. So make it a practice कि पहले अपन test cases लिख रहे and then उसका code लिख रहे. It's very helpful. I mean Tarun who is my teammate, can agree with that. So write data structures and operators. So okay, before, yeah, clean code. So this is what I have seen with everyone. I'm seeing everything. Do not hardcore values, config values in code. Use a config file. You know, it seems very small thing while you start, but let me tell you, these things go out in production and they create havoc. For sure. I've seen that happening, and we need to put controls in place so that that thing doesn't happen. Especially in mobile apps, you know, if you put any hard-coded values, app stores, play stores, they do flag these as severe vulnerabilities because they can be exposed, and these API keys can be used to compromise your infrastructure. In terms of code, like if it's a big piece हो जा रहा है, so work on modularizing it. एक monolith बड़ा सा मत लिखो. Try to break things down. Functions, classes, inheritance, use those concepts very cleanly. And again, in this aspects, like, you know, you won't get a right answer at the very moment, but have a mentor, जो भी तुम्हारा manager है, work with him, like कैसे होना चाहिए. You know, demand a code review. You know, like that person might not have the time and might not pay attention if you're just getting the job done, but as junior engineers who have started, like demand this, ki mera code review karo, give me inputs, ki what is the right thing to do. And again, if the quick review on your end should be ki readable hai ki nahi. I mean, you have written a code, whoever is your co-worker, just tell him ki samajh raha hai kya. If that's not happening, then yeah, ki kaise kar sakte hai? And it's okay to not have an answer. Look towards a mentor, look towards your manager. Ask for an answer कि इसको कैसे better कर सकते हैं. So yeah, data structures, operators, like choosing a right thing. Now this is again this is something you should learn right now, so that ये practice बन जाना चाहिए. I use the right things. Like there are two examples here doing the exact same thing, but which one is better? Right? Which one? Yeah, exactly. So again, output same दे रहा है, end result में same दिख रहा है, and but why? Right? Why? The question is why we do. Why I am saying do this now, so that it becomes like muscle memory जैसा, like it becomes reflex कि I am using the right thing to do right now. And it might not have a question, but again ये छोटा सा piece है ना, when it goes to a bigger feature or a bigger app in a bigger picture, it fails. It tends to create roadblocks which are very hard to figure out, very hard to pinpoint and fix at a later stage. So as a developers, do this as a practice. How do I write better? Reuse the functions. Often times we get into reinventing the wheel kind of concept. The programming language these days are very powerful. काफी सारे libraries होते हैं, inbuilt भी available होते हैं, but we don't use that, and we try to do this. Like same thing is the example same है कि sum कर रहे, but on the other hand that same thing is available in built. So let's use that. Now let's talk about architecture. Now these are very broader terms, which it is very difficult at this stage of your career. You will get the ownership in terms of this. But I wanted to share these things because I was fortunate enough to work on these at the within first year when I started working. So going back again, like I said, see a entire call flow, right? कि क्या हो रहा है? Not just your own code and ये कैसे चलेगा, कब चलेगा, doesn't matter. See the entire picture. So again, there are n number of things in terms of architecture. I'm presenting these three things which are very near and dear, and you can, even today, consider it and see it working. So other than like content delivery, caching strategies, and edge compute, there are much more things like database sharding. I would say from a DevOps perspective, there are Kubernetes, the automation, CI/CD pipelines. All of these are there. Any one of us from DevOps who is working right now, right away on DevOps as an entry level thing? I don't see. So yeah, mostly front end, back end engineers I see. So yeah, these are more relevant to you. And there is another aspect in terms of DevOps. So let's dive into it. So content delivery, what is that system? Like, how many of you have heard this word CDN? Yeah, Manish, you cut down the cost, I know. So yeah, content delivery network. So these are basically a network of servers spread across the globe who cache content for you. So consider आप एक simple there's a get call who is responding something to your end users. Abhi, like you have a mobile app which uses that get call, and you have sent a push notification and everyone is opening. Like 10,000, 20,000, 1 lakh users are opening it at the same time. So your server, your app will be hit by that same 1 lakh request and it will be fried, like khatam, down. So how does it help? Like it's the same thing. You're just sharing a list of ki abhi, whatever, these are the list, which is same for all the users. So CDN comes into picture at that time ki okay, agar mera high traffic hai, and the content is the same. So you can do this. Like example would be Hotstar doing video streaming. They won't be able to do without a content delivery network. Your app like sports apps or news apps where you're getting like okay, this is a breaking news. When you open, there has to be a content delivery network because no server can handle that amount of traffic. I mean, technically yes, you can have like tens of thousands of servers, but that is very expensive because you need it for like barely a minute. Jab everyone is pounding on to get that data. So these are kind of graphs, like this is from the product I work on, DFE, which is a fan experience platform which relates to sports. So yes, there are push notifications people open in like millions of requests pile onto the servers. So this is kind of, and also when having a CDN, what happens is the response times are much, much, much better than your server processing it and sending. So CDN just caches it कि मुझे okay A, B, C ये response का array भेजना है या JSON object भेजना है, that's it. It knows. It doesn't process it again. So only once the backend server or the code you write will execute, the CDN will cache that thing and will serve to everyone. So you'll see here like the peak that we are handling here. So ये जो variation आ रहा है, right? In all this case, we haven't scaled our servers at all. It's the same 2 to 4 servers which are doing all of this traffic. And the response time, if you see, like barely in microseconds, which is super quick. Agar CDN nahi hota, like without the CDN in picture, this is just not possible at this time. We would hit the hit downtimes like anything. The catch here is like when doing CDN, कि अभी okay, validate तो हो गया. Like you have cached the request, but when do you erase it? When does it become invalid? अगर data update होता है. So we call it as purging or invalidation. There is various terms that are being used. So when putting a CDN in front of your service, you need to figure out the purging strategy. And also it's very tricky because it is very easy to say कि सब उड़ा दो. But नहीं, we want to only purge specific requests which become invalid. So usko hi karna hai. So that's a tricky mechanism, but know this thing, CDN kya hai, learn about it and how does it help in your, while you develop backend services, how does it help? So keep in mind, how do you do this purging, right? I mean, at this time, what you're working on might not have a CDN in front of it. But basically, wherever there is data update happening within your systems, that's where, you keep a placeholder, ki agar CDN dalna hai, to this is where I want to add that purging wala request to the CDN. So just wanted to share that perspective. Okay, next would be caching. So we all have like a backend, front end, and there's a database. Okay, mostly MongoDB is there right now. But again, it has its thing ki, it will be very difficult to run it under heavy load. Take for example again, like we have developed a game at Raw Engineering, which runs live, like it has like 10,000, 20,000 users playing at the same time. So the strategy that we applied, ki if we use the same thing on MongoDB, technically yes, we can achieve that. Ek user, 10 user aaram se chalega. But for 10,000 users, it won't. It's just not possible. So we took a call. We decided ki we'll use in-memory databases like Redis, Redis, Memcache. So we are using Redis at this stage. So Redis works like we don't have to worry about it. We have load tested it for 1 crore users, and the same smaller, like it's a large instance. I don't know if large size instance, which is 8 GB RAM. It just works without any hiccups. Same response time. It doesn't matter. What's slowing it down is the I/O, the network I/O between the end users and the Redis. But Redis is working flawless. This is one of the strategy where, in this particular scenario, Redis is there. But Redis is an in-memory database. So let's say the machine goes away, the data is gone. So like I said, there are pros and cons. The pros here are like, okay, you're getting very fast response times, insane scaling activities are achieved, the same piece of code, but just using Redis. So what do we do when the machine goes away? So in our case, once the game is over, we transform that data in Redis and put it down to MongoDB. Because after that, it's barely accessed, just by some admins to see ki kya result hai us game ka. But end users do not. So at that point, Redis se pura nikal ke, it stays there. Also, it is not good thing to keep everything persistent in Redis, because it's an in-memory database. So it will consume that amount of RAM. So only use for jitna chahiye, utna duration ke liye, and absolutely essential data only there. So again, like coming back to what you are working on. Identify the pieces, जिसको fast करना है, like one hit is working. But अगर इधर, 10,000 request आ गए, तो how will my code work? So, see कि वहाँ पे caching कैसे use कर सकते हैं. Think about that. Again, talk to your mentors, talk to your managers कि ये थोड़ा slow हो रहा है, and there is no way. There might be ways, like I said earlier, operators and right data structures करके we can optimize the code. But there is a limit of it. अगर कर ही बढ़ा रहा है, like the operation behind that is कि एक CSV file खोलना है, उसमें से process करना है, then that is no way can be done in less than 200 milliseconds. So maybe caching काम आए. Maybe there's something called as delayed jobs. कि you just take a request, put it in a queue, and let that queue do the processing. So delayed jobs are another aspect where आपका main request doesn't block. You say कि हाँ ठीक है, I have received, and then there is a background job which will finish off that heavier processing. So think along those lines while you're writing code. If this is a heavier request, what is the path? I can speed this up. Either put it a background job, either put a CDN, or in memory databases. Edge computing is it's trending these days, and it's very powerful in the sense that the way I see it, like whatever logic that we need, there are certain supplementary logic that we need to apply, which is not part of the core product that you work on, right? So you don't require any ACLs, is it a valid request, not, sport API key validation, nothing is required. So, but they are still required. So rather than doing it in your code, which has the core logic, and then uske chakkar mein pura slow down karega, it will add certain cost. There's something called edge computing, like there are various services which are available, like certain CDN services have it on their end. AWS also provides something called edge compute. So these things run the code at a request level. The CDN gets a request, that's where it is processed even before it is sent to our servers. So whatever you want to filter, kuch payload apply karna hai, you want to get some data, you can do that at that level rather than in your own Node.js project. The example what we have here is we do the request that we get on a product, we need to monitor ki is user ka kitna aa raha hai requests. So wo monitoring, why do it in the Node.js app? We can do it. Each request aa raha hai, we register, okay, this is the API key, okay, +1, +1, +1. So rather, it's still an operation, it will block our main logic as well. So we do it at a request level, CDN pe hota hai, ki okay, we are getting a request. We are again using Redis there. We just do the atomic operators and say +1 ki sports key, API key is called sports key in our end. So this sports key, just +1. And that's how those requests are counted. It just works, it doesn't disturb our main logic, and it's very great to scale as well. So yeah, these are the examples that I wanted to cover. And feel free to reach out to me. We'll hang out and talk. But these are the quick strategies that I wanted to share. At this stage of your career, kya karna hai? How do we do it as a practice? And ask the right questions. Like ask questions, but the right ones, so that whoever is mentoring you, whoever is your manager, they get that there is an effort, and also they can invest their time in you so that you grow to the next step. So thanks for the time joining here. Happy to connect after the session as well. Any questions?
Good morning. So I had a question regarding the CDN part that you explained. My question was like, how exactly do the game, for example, the game that you recently explained, I wanted to know how can that game be done in multi-platform stage, because I know that there are only very few games that are available on the net that have seamlessly integrated a mobile app game and a person playing on a maybe a high-end computer laptop. But there are very few games that have cross-platform gaming available between them. So like the way you explain CDN, is it also possible through that to achieve cross-platform gaming with that?
Uh, yes, by cross-platform you mean like Android, iOS or desktop? Like what do you mean
Yeah,
by cross?
both ways, like Android iOS and Android to maybe let's say laptop or something like
Okay,
that.
okay. So in terms of platform, so there is so in this case, wherever the game is running is consider it as a front end, right? It's a mobile app. It can be Android, iOS, desktop, or tablet, anything. But the services it will consume to make it dynamic are the same. The payload remains the same, the request remain the same. There is nothing specific. So the CDN comes into picture at the backend level, right? When the requests are received. In terms of the platform where the game is being built, there are various types. So again, in our case, we use it's a Flutter app where that game is being built. There are also technologies like KMM, which Tarun will be speaking about later. So that is another thing that we are using to be cross-platform, so that we have that. So there are two things when we work on Android and iOS. If there are two set of developers working, there is definitely room for the same logic being implemented in separate ways. But there is no need for that. So that's where these cross-platform technologies are helpful. But again, it's a double-edged sword. Like we need to keep that balance. So we are a mix of native, we are a mix of Flutter, a bit of KMM, and then native SDKs as well. So to your question, yes, CDN is something that is on the back end. It doesn't matter if it's a Flutter app, it's a native app, or anything else. It will just consume those APIs. And in this case, the Redis is the key heart of that game. Had Redis not been in picture, even the CDN wouldn't have helped there, because it's literally transactional. So CDN can help only when the request remain the same. So if like million users are accessing and they are supposed to get the same thing as response, that's when CDN is very helpful. But if it's a transaction where like banking or your Amazon orders, like the API calls that you do are unique to you, they won't match with anyone else. So a CDN won't help. Like CDN will say, okay, cache करने लायक कुछ नहीं है इसमें. So it will just keep sending different to and fro करते रहेगा. That's where in-memory databases or something which goes outside the file system will be helpful to speed that up. To add, if I want to give an example in this aspect, like so Amazon.com, like if you know उनका order history होता है, right? You get order, तुम्हारे orders का history. Now that is unique to you as a user. So the way they have kept, like there are so many users on Amazon. So that particular aspect they haven't kept in their databases. They have kept it as simple files in their S3 storage. So they did that so that way DB size khatam ho raha tha. And order history was something that was considering that was using a lot of space. But taking this out, they were well within the limit. So that's another example how you change the system. Thanks.
As you mentioned, like Amazon example. So, how do Amazon handles flash sales? Like it's unique to every customer, so we can't use Redis mechanism here, right? So, how do API calls are handled in that case?
Uh, so Redis definitely will help, but when we say flash sale, right? You are talking about orders,
Yeah.
right? When everyone goes and buys, like okay, place order, place order, place order, and things break. Like another example is IRCTC, right? किसी को ticket नहीं मिलता, state. So yes, those are challenges. So that's where in-memory database do help. But there's something कि we track for this much. Like these sales, like IRCTC का मैं कोई guarantee नहीं लेता, but Amazon, Flipkart sales, they are getting better with time. So let's say they anticipate 10 lakh per user, 10 lakh users doing something. But if it hits 20 or 50, that won't work. So that's when we see failures. I'm sure they are doing things to accommodate that, right? 10 lakh के हिसाब से बनाया. But yes, in-memory databases definitely will help with a combination of CDN. But in the case of flash sales, the orders, those are supposed to be post calls to do the payment. At that time, it's still a bottleneck, right? And also, the orders cannot be over, like, there has to be a lock key. If I'm only selling 10 products, तो अगर parallel में 100 आए तो भी problem है, right? So that's where you have to keep mechanisms where things are, okay, wait. We have to wait, and then previous order, okay, confirm हुआ, then change the counter, and then allow पीछे से queue चालू करो, right? So queuing mechanism is crucial in that case, where there is something you're selling which is in limited quantity, but there is high demand. So queuing is something that you might use there to slow things down, intentionally, so that data galat now. Right.
One more question, like as seniority increases in IT industry, do you code more or do you code less?
Well, my opinion, you should code, right? Because that is something that will keep you, coding might become lesser, but if you lose touch of it, if you're not able to fix something when the team is stuck, then everyone is stuck, right? So there will be cases when people look up to you कि अरे इसको हो ही नहीं रहा है, fix ही नहीं हो रहा है, right? At that time, it is very valuable if you can get in and do that, get it done. So it's a personal choice, I would say, but it's definitely a big positive if you can, anytime get in and get things done.
Thank you.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks, everyone.